Hello and welcome to another episode of the Super Soul Model series. I'm your host James Granström, and thank you so much for tuning in today. This week I'm going to be talking about the spiritual law of detachment and how that can help you get what you really want. About 20 years ago, I first started modeling, and my ambition and my intent was to get myself a six-pack, because if I got myself a six-pack, then I could be able to be in the best possible shape to do all the magazines, the adverts. It was just like a job requirement, really, that I'd set myself so that I could do the runway shows. And I first started my training session 3 months before I needed to turn up to Milan to do the runway shows, and this was back in about 2001. And I knew next to nothing about the modeling industry, next to nothing about the fashion industry. All I knew was that I had a dream, I had a goal, and I wanted to do everything I possibly could to give myself the best possible position. Now, how does this relate to the law of detachment? I'm going to tell you in a second. I did all the work. I did like 6 days of training, 1 day off, ate all the foods, took all the supplements, had so much protein in my diet. And when I ended up getting to Milan to do the shows, I did really well in my first season. However, what I did notice is that my body may have looked great, but my mind felt terrible. And it was really the emotional roller coaster that I had of not finding an emotional balance with my mind, even though my body externally looked really good. And this is really fascinating because that led me to books like Deepak Chopra's Perfect Health. So I was fascinated and obsessed by getting myself really healthy and knowing what that actually meant. Because physically, yes, I look good, but mentally, no. And what I've come to know, and the reason why this is called the Super Soul Model series, is because you need your mind, body, and soul in tune. And if you get all of those three rolling, you are going to have a feel-good life and a feel-good body. Now, will there be challenges? Yes, there will. However, if these are in check, and what I'm here to do is guide you along that way, you're going to feel great. And that's the purpose of this show, to each week give you a little bit of guidance towards something that you could potentially put some practical use to. Now, when I followed this book, one of the things that Deepak Chopra talked about was one of these 7 spiritual principles, which was non-attachment. And I didn't understand what that meant. And I'm going to do my best to really explain it with clarity to you. What it means is that you're not attached to something that you really want. So if it's a specific job that you want it, but you're not attached to it. If it's a specific person you're wanting to attract into your life, you're not attached to it. If it's a certain contract that you're wanting to attract, you want it, but you're not attached to it. Now, we're always going to be the dancing between the attachment and the detachment. But what I want to show you is the spiritual principle of detachment today, and give you some practical tips of where you can apply it so that you can get what you really want, but with no resistance. And the key word here is resistance. When you need something, you really need it, I need this, there's resistance. When you want something and you're not bothered, that's detachment. That's a non-attachment. And I found when I first started meditating that things that I thought of came to me very easily. I'd be like, oh, I'd like to speak to that person. And in 20 minutes, by the time I'd finished my meditation, someone would call me. And I was like, are you kidding me? And I thought I couldn't understand this, and I would be thinking of something and a film that I wanted to watch, and it would turn up on TV that day. And just small little things. I'd be thinking about a little parking place when I wanted to park and I wanted to run in and come out. There was a parking space right outside. And this would be happening to me all the time. And I couldn't understand why. And as I'd started meditating, I found that you become a lot more relaxed. And as you become a lot more relaxed, you are not in a resistant state, and so the things that you want can come to you a lot quicker. I remember walking into the TV room when I lived with a friend about 15-16 years ago, and I walked in and they said, what are the greatest places on the planet? And the number one place was the Grand Canyon. And you know what? I said out loud, I want to go there. Now, I'm not saying that this happens all the time, but I'm just saying this happened. I was in a really feel-good mood when that came in, and I just saw that and I was like, wow, I want to go there. 2 weeks later, I was confirmed on a flight to go to Las Vegas. And one of the things they said is, James, you've got a free day. What would you like to do? And I said, I would love to go to the Grand Canyon, because the Grand Canyon's right by Vegas. And I had a time of my life and a dream come true. And 2 weeks earlier, I'd said, I want to go there. But I'm telling you, the difference is I wasn't attached to it. I didn't know how it was going to come about. It just came about. But I know for a fact I was in a really feel-good mood. Now, it's not always going to happen like that. But what I did realize is that meditation releases resistance. And when you release resistance, things can come into your life a lot more quickly. People who are lucky have an attitude of luck. They take opportunities, they act on opportunities, they speak to people, they connect with people, they're willing to be open, and they say yes a lot to things. But also the people who are lucky are non-resistant people, because the more resistance you have in your life, as in neediness, want, I need this, a lack, feeling, concern, worry, frustration, all these are resistant vibes, these are resistant frequencies. That won't bring you the so-called luck that you are wanting. The luck that life is showing you, good fortune, comes from this non-resistant, easygoing, feel-good, uplifting, positive attitude. And that is why positivity is so contagious. And the luckier you get, the more luckier you want to become, because when you start expecting good things to happen to you, that's all you want, and going back is not something that you want. So if someone you feel is unlucky, or someone you think is unlucky, it's only because they've got a little bit more resistance in their life. Now, everyone has resistance, but the key thing is you can allow that to subside by doing more things that you love, and meditating a whole lot more, and exercising for sure. So anyway, getting into the point of detachment. Detachment is wanting something but not needing it. Now, this is a spiritual principle. You want something but you don't need it. Years ago, when I first started modeling, a friend of mine I was doing a job with, like he was just getting one big job after another. And as I just started, I was like in awe, and I was like watching him. I was like, "Again, man, that's really cool. You just booked this now." And I was so happy for him. And I was talking to him about meditation, and he said to me, he goes, I get really angry and frustrated a lot, and I need to learn how to calm down. And I said, well, you know what? I've just started meditating, and I have to say it's brought me a lot of inner peace, but it's brought me a lot of happiness as well. And he goes, man, I would love to learn. Would you be able to teach me? And I said, yeah, of course I'll teach you. So I taught him how to do it. We did like half an hour, and I asked him, I said, listen, mate, I'd really like to know you. How do you keep attracting, or how do you keep getting these amazing top jobs, one thing after another? And I was like in awe, and I felt like I was interviewing a little bit, and he was interviewing me about the meditation. And he said to me, he goes, James, man, I'm just not bothered whether I book the job or not. I'm just not bothered. And I was like, wow, what does that actually mean? And it took me a little while to digest that information, for allow it to settle, just like maybe this video might for you, or this podcast might be for you. But once it settles, at least you now have the knowledge, you have the awareness. And what I took it was this law of detachment, is that my friend, he wasn't attached to whether he'd get the job or not. He wasn't bothered. The word not bothered means he wasn't attached to whether he'd get it or not. He didn't need it. If it came, great. And if it didn't come, great. I mean, he'd like it, but he wasn't bothered whether it came or not. And that's why he kept on getting job after job after job after job. And I've tried to apply this successfully. I have done it successfully, and I've applied it unsuccessfully many times. And the more failure you have, the more resilience that you have to go, right, maybe I'm doing this incorrectly, maybe I'm not seeing it correctly. But the things that you want should come to you smoothly, on a path of least resistance. Because if they come to you on a path of resistance, you're saying, I want it, give it to me now, it's never going to give you any pleasure. The thing that you want is to enjoy the things that come to you. Life wants to bring you good stuff, and you deserve to have good stuff. But the only thing is you don't want it to be resistant on its arrival. You want your path to be made smooth and easy. And that is what this spiritual law of detachment is really all about. So whenever you're wanting to bring something into your life, you're wanting to attract something, you want to manifest something you're thinking about that you want to bring to you, you want to think about it in a way that has no resistance. And what I mean by that is, in order for this law of detachment to come about, you need to think about it in a term where it brings you good feelings. It feels like good vibes when you're thinking about it. And if you're not thinking about it with good vibes, what that means is that you've got resistance. The things that you want will turn up with the vibes that you were feeling as you were thinking it. So if there were good feeling vibes, when it arrives eventually, that will be the vibes that you will receive. So think about the things that you want with good feeling vibes. If you've got something that you're thinking about and you've got like real concern and like negative vibes about it, that's got resistance. And always the things that you truly want feel good, which has no resistance. So start thinking about the things that you truly want with no resistance, and then they will find their way into your life through the path of least resistance, like a river. Nature is our greatest teacher. It always shows us that the rivers and the waters move down the path of least resistance. And that's very much like the desires that we have, the things that we're wanting to bring into our lives. Things come to us naturally. And when they are forced, they're full of resistance and they will never stay, because that resistance is overpowering and never brings us any pleasure. So focus on the things that you want with a good feeling vibe, and then they will come on the path of least resistance via a sense of detachment. Ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to star in movies. I love film, I love watching film, I love watching videos, I love watching DVDs, just love the movies. Movies are a great place to escape to. And I always thought to myself, do you know what, I'd love to be into movies someday. And a few years ago, and this is practicing the spiritual law of detachment, it makes me laugh because I look back and I think, well, how did that happen? One summer, there was not much going on. Work was very quiet in August, particularly in the modelling industry. Most of the clients are away. And I spent about a month walking up and down into the common near where I live, just walking up and down, up and down, up and down. And I was giving myself good pep talks as I was walking around the common. I was probably walking about 5 miles a day. And beautiful to walk through nature. And I find that nature is one of the places where you can become resistant free, which is what I've been talking about earlier. And when you spend time in nature, it does something to you. It does something for your psyche. It does something for your natural rhythms. You become in tune with it, and nature is the natural healer. But as I was walking around these beautiful trees and these paths and these little mini ponds and lakes, it was so beautiful. And I would be talking to myself about things that felt good and about giving myself a pep talk. And I did this every day for 3 weeks, and I'd get these like good feelings in my stomach as I'd walk up and down. And after those 3 weeks, I hadn't heard a call. Obviously, everything was away in terms of clients and so forth. But at the very beginning of September, I did a show, a runway show in London, and I got a call from my agent, and my agent said, I have an audition for you. And usually in modelling, you'd get a casting, not an audition. And I was like, ooh, an audition. And they'd be like, yes. And they said, it's for a film. And I was like, well, this is amazing. And they said, by the way, they've only asked for you. They've not asked for anybody else. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. I went to go and see them. And I ended up booking this movie. And this movie came about with such ease, and it was so fun. And I worked with the funnest people, and you can go and check it. It's called The World's End, and it's with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and Pierce Brosnan and Rosamund Pike and Martin Freeman. Amazing cast, and I was blessed to work with these beautiful people. But how it came about was I got a call from my agent, and I ended up doing it. That was the physical action, but I was feeling so good for 3 weeks beforehand, and I had no idea what was coming shortly afterwards. But When this occurred to me and it happened, and I ended up getting picked up in this beautiful car and went on set for like a few days, for like 4 days, and I had my own trailer and everything like that. It was amazing. What an amazing experience. It just reminded me of this law of detachment. And the law of detachment was, I wanted to star in a film. I didn't know how it was going to come about. I just knew that somewhere, someday, that I'd be able to do it, but I didn't know when and I didn't know in what capacity. And it happened with such ease, and it happened with such joy. And if you ever heard of like the book The Secret or anything like that, it sure felt like that. But there was action to take, and the action to take for me was to feel really, really good and cultivate this good feeling inside my body, and having a good sense of self, talking myself into a good feeling state. If you ever watch a boxer, they talk to themselves to make sure that when they fight their opponent, they know that they're going to win. If you watch like someone like Tyson Fury, his self-talk is empowering. It's powerful. He goes, I don't lose, I win. I gear myself up to win. They train their minds so much, and that's almost what you have to do in order to get what it is that you truly want. But it has to be done from a genuine feel-good place, because if you're not feeling good and there's any resistance, I guarantee you it's not going to work. And I know that these things that came about always happened with no resistance. They all came about smoothly and easily and enjoyably. So things can happen, and they can happen magically, but you have to be on the path of least resistance and not be attached to certain outcomes, certain things that you want that you can't necessarily figure out how you're going to go about doing it. You need to learn to have a sense of detachment with it. If there's something you know how to do that needs to be done, like putting a business proposal together and building a contract to sell a company, that takes work, that takes fine-tuning, that takes a lot of cooperation with a lot of people. That's something that you can do. But if it's something you have no idea about knowing, which almost seems like a dream that is outside of your ability to not know how you need to, or not know what you need to do next, that is when a detachment will really, really come in. Sometimes when you're wanting a life partner, you're wanting to attract a life partner into your experience, that requires a level of detachment. You've got to be in a good feeling mood. And usually when you're in a good feeling mood, you're going to attract someone who's also in a good feeling mood. And that is why detachment is so important, because you want to be thinking about the things that light you up. And as you're thinking about things that light you up, you are sending that frequency out, which is where all the good stuff comes back, which is what we call luck. Good luck is a result of non-resistance and having a sense of detachment. Now, conversely, when something happens in our life that's out of our control, how does this spiritual principle play its part? Well, initially we're going to feel upset, we're going to feel grief, we're going to feel like someone passes away, we're going to feel grief, we're going to feel, off our center, and that's natural. It's natural to feel those feelings. But one of the ways in order to deal with these types of situations is to do the best you can with wherever you are. And by having this sort of information here and this sort of spiritual principle of detachment means that you give as much love as you possibly can, and you take care of your mind, body and soul. And how are you going to do that? Well, you definitely need to be exercising, whether you like it or not, during this time, because that's going to help you look after your body. You need to be eating well as best you can, because I know when you feel bad and things happen and are out of your control, it's very easy to reach for foods that aren't good, but you need to reach for natural foods. That is so important, and you need to be disciplined enough to know that that's going to help you. Number 3, you need to drink a whole lot more water, because the water is so important for your body to operate at its highest level. And during these other tough times when things happen, you need to learn, or at least have some sort of meditation practice in place, because this is going to keep you sane. This is one thing that has managed to change my life over and over and over again. That's why I've been doing it daily for so long. And that the more you can start incorporating a meditation practice and being silent every day and quietening the mind as much as possible for at least 15 to 20 minutes a day, that has such profound power in making you feel less resistant. And when things happen that are out of our control, meditation is a wonderful way to release stress and all those kind of things. Now, does it mean that everything's going to be better straight away? No, it doesn't. But it does mean that you're taking care of your mind, body and soul. And when you do, when you do, you'll be able to handle things a lot better, because like I said earlier, the spiritual principle will remain, and challenges in life are inevitable, but it's just how you deal with them, which is what makes you a human being and what you find you're made of. And that's why having some of these understandings will make life a lot easier when things like that happen. It's like learning to be prepared and learning how to have some skills in your back pocket when something occurs. They're good. Now, the law of detachment is to not be attached to other things, not to be attached to your desires, not be attached to your intents. And that is a tricky dance that you need to learn how to do yourself. But the best way to describe it, as I conclude here, is it's wanting something but not needing it. It is expecting something without having any attachment. And it's wanting something and not wondering when it's going to come about, but just expecting it to come about. And if it does turn up, that is wonderful and you can celebrate. And if it doesn't turn up, that's okay as well, because it's always the things that you want that you're not so attached to, they come really quickly in your life. And it's always the things that you've been wanting for ages that they seem to be very, very slow in coming. Why is that? And the answer is exactly that. You've been holding on to it. You've been holding on so tightly that you just haven't let it go to come back. These wants and desires that you have, that you're wanting to manifest into your life, that you're wanting to attract into your life, that you're wanting to bring into your life, you've been holding on so tightly for so long, you actually haven't let them go. And so the law of detachment is very much like letting go, very much like surrendering to the infinite intelligence that's around us, that produces all the beautiful nature around us, and just allowing it to go and come back. You know, you don't look at you don't dig up seeds after you planted them in the ground every week or so to check on seeing how it's doing. You've got to just trust that the sunlight and the water is allowing that seed to germinate. And that's very much like our wants and desires and the things that we're wanting to bring into our life. So you've got to learn that special art, and it's very subtle. And you can only do that by having this knowledge, by having this understanding of this spiritual principle, and by acts. So I'd be very interested if any of you got any questions. You've got to write into me and just saying, I've been looking to attract something into my life. I've been wanting this for a long time. How do I go about letting this in? And you've got to be looking at it from this perspective. Have I let it? Have I been holding on to it so tightly, and I've been going, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Because every time you ask where it is, it's not here. And that's the secret. You've got to know that it's here, germinating in the ground, ready and waiting to sprout for you when the time is right. And obviously, if it's not here right now, the time is not right. So things can come about as best and as quickly as you can let them go and allow them to come in without having this sense of neediness and attachment for them to be here, right now. And when you are right here, right now, without any attachment, without any extra need, being thankful for everything that you have, you're less resistant, and things always come to you on the path of least resistance. At least all the good stuff that you want always comes to you on the path of least resistance. Anything that comes to you on the path of resistance, which is with force, never comes and stays with joy. And joy is the purpose of life for you to feel. And you can have what you want, and you deserve to have what you want. But it comes a lot easier when you are more relaxed, more in the flow, more optimistic, more expecting good things to happen, feeling better, feeling more relaxed, feeling excited, feeling some sense of excited anticipation, as Abraham Hicks would say. But most importantly, just feeling happy. You've got to find a way to feel happy with what you've got right now, because when you feel happy with what you've got right now, I guarantee you're going to get more things that are going to make you more happy. So happiness is really the secret here to detachment. Be happy with what you've got, and you're going to get a whole lot more. And the things that you have and the things that you want will just keep flowing into your life, because you're not needing more things. You want more things, but you don't need them. And in our life, it's like, well, why do we keep wanting more things? We want more things because we're human beings. We're ever unfolding, always expanding. There's always going to be something that you want. There's always going to be something that's not perfect in your life. So just make peace with that. And as you make peace with that, there's going to be more good stuff that comes along. You've got to, like in nature, if you look out in trees and you look out in forests, there's beautiful new life springing forth, and there are old trees that are dead. They live and coexist with one another. It's a bit like us. We've got lives that some part are in absolute harmony and other parts that are imperfect. Make peace with the imperfection, because the imperfection balances out all the bits that are going very well and very harmoniously. And besides, if everything was perfect, you wouldn't be growing. You need to have the contrast. You need to have the rainy days to appreciate the sunny days. So when there's a rainy day going on, don't beat yourself up. Be more relaxed. Be more lighthearted. Try and watch more movies that are a bit more uplifting. But most of all, make sure that your self-talk is good, because your self-talk determines how much more you can go with the flow. The luckiest people are the people who are relaxed, steady in their vibe, emotionally centered, calm, but mostly very happy. And that is the difference. And you can activate the law of detachment by being, number one, a lot happier. Number two, 100% meditating a lot more. And number three, most of all, wanting but not needing, and not being bothered whether and when something's going to turn up. Just trust that it will. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. If you've got any questions, love to hear your questions. DM me at James Granström on Instagram. And please subscribe and like to the show if you haven't already. And as always, I wish you green lights all the way and lots of love and blessings.